this diabetes develops is there's too much insulin in the body, which is also termed hyperinsulinemia for those who want more of the medical jargon, creates a condition of insulin resistance within the body, and makes our cells resistant to our own insulin. It makes our cells not like our own insulin anymore. So how this happens is it's very similar to how human beings develop resistance towards certain things. One example would be the British songstress Adele. I love Adele. I'm not knocking Adele here by any means, but I love Adele. When her first CD came out, 21, or first album came out, you can tell what generation I'm from. I'm still saying CD. My husband, everything he has is on some sort of cloud somewhere in cyberspace, but I still go by CD. When that came out, it was great. I just gotten through, she helped me get through my breakup with my high school sweetheart. So that was great. And then she disappeared and had a baby and then got married or whatnot and had some life. And she came back with her new album, Hello, or her new single, Hello, and her new album, 25. And everybody loved that album. I mean, she just won every Grammy of the year at the Grammys the other month. Her songs from that album were very popular, and because they were so popular, they were played a lot on the radio. And I'm someone who used to commute quite the distance, particularly at the time when her first single, Hello, came out on the radio. So I remember driving home from work one day, and I was going through my radio stations, and I had 12 preset stations, and 8 of them were playing that song, Hello. And I love that song the first 3,000 times I've heard it, but after the 8,000th time, I just wanted to scream goodbye at Adele. I would have rather listened to anything else at that point. So no matter how much I love Adele, and I think she's a great role model, and I think I love her music, and I love that song the first 3,000 times I heard it, I could only hear it so many times before my eardrums became broken and I could not listen to her voice for a while. So I had to take like a 6-month Adele hiatus before I could listen to that song anymore. But they played it so often, I got sick of it. And I think a lot of people do this. It's like your favorite movie, or a movie. You can only watch it so many times, and then it doesn't become as special anymore. Or celebrities do this. They do a whole bunch of stupid crap, and then they just, like, their PR people hide them for a long period of time, and then they bring them back into the spotlight, and people forget what idiots they were, when they were being jerks 6 months ago or last year, or a decade ago. People forget what they did because the population had developed resistance towards this particular celebrity for always being on the news and always doing stupid stuff. So I think we can all sort of relate to that concept. So our bodies have developed insulin resistance. Because we've just produced so much insulin, our cells have actually become resistant to it. So insulin resistance is the problem here that is causing the diabetes and the metabolic syndrome. And this is what we're really trying to tackle. So we're going to talk very briefly for about 10-15 minutes about insulin resistance, and then we're going to take our break. So that will be from 10:15 to 10:45. Today, for those of you who are eagerly waiting to go walk the dogs or pick up the kids. So keep in mind going forward that it's carbohydrates that are creating that unwanted fat. So you have stacks of sugar that have been converted to stacks of fat by insulin. And your insulin is good. We just have to make your body like it again. So it's our dietary habits that have caused us to produce so much insulin by eating diets that are very high in carbohydrates and by going to town on protein a little bit too much. So let's talk about insulin resistance briefly. So I'm going to skip forward to this slide and then we'll skip back. But what happens again is when you eat carbohydrates, the sugar molecules swim out. The pancreas is then signaled to release insulin vehicles to pick up that glucose, that sugar, and drive it to the cell. So many of you, I don't know if you have had children or when you were a kid. When I was a kid, we had these big buddies that walked us home. If our parents were busy or whoever was taking care of us was busy. So we would have a big buddy come to the kindergarten room, and then the big buddy would take us and would walk us home. And they would bring us to the front door and knock on the front door. And then I would enter my home. So I was like the sugar molecule, and my big buddy was like the insulin molecule. So the big buddy, the insulin would come and find me, and then the big buddy would walk me to the front door. So in this case, the insulin finds the sugar, and the insulin walks it to the insulin receptor, which is the insulin door, the sugar door into the cell. And the insulin knocks on the insulin door, the insulin receptor, and then the insulin door opens, the sugar will go into the cell. So when you have normal insulin metabolism, when you don't have insulin resistance, when you're a non-diabetic, this will happen all very naturally. So as your cells need energy, your cells are going to get energy. The sugar is going to filter into the cell. It's going to provide it with fuel, and that will all happen normally. But what happens in the case of a diabetic individual is you have insulin resistance. And that insulin receptor no longer lets the sugar in. That insulin door no longer opens. It's broken shut. It's no longer working because you've pounded the heck out of that door over and over and over and over again. It's like 3,000 buddies trying to get into the one house. You're going to shut the door. There's a riot outside. You're going to break that door. So that door gets broken and gets worn down. It gets stuck shut. And so even when you need energy, even when that cell needs energy, that door is not opening. That door is not letting any insulin or any blood sugar into it. That door is stuck shut for your insulin. Your insulin, by beating down on that door so much, has broken that door, and now your cells can't get the energy that they need. So this is why people who are overweight, this is why people who are diabetic, this is why people with metabolic syndrome are always so tired all of the time. You're just so tired, and even when your cells are screaming, begging, pleading for energy, they just can't get it because of this, because the cell is broken. So when you fast, you allow for the cell to heal. And when you fast, then the cell heals. And when you eat when you produce adequate glucose, and you don't have this large traffic always going in and out of the cell, then that allows the door to heal and allows the sugar to come back in. So this is how people, when you lose weight, this is what's happening that gives you back that energy. So just to go back one slide here, our insulin receptors, you could think of it as their appetite. They lose their appetite for their own insulin because you force it to eat it in too large quantities, or you're producing it too often, and you're overstuffing them with food all of the time. And eventually it's just not going to eat anymore. So we get into this chaotic situation on the right by eating too many carbohydrates and eating just too often. So quickly, how we develop this insulin resistance is, again, eating too many carbohydrates, not the non-starchy vegetables, but the starchy vegetables and grains and the sugars, particularly the refined carbohydrates. Those foods that really cause your blood sugar levels to spike instantaneously. When your blood sugar levels spike instantaneously, it's going to saturate your blood and your liver with sugar. And if it doesn't saturate your blood always, it will saturate your liver with sugar if it's fructose. And that is going to cause your insulin levels to surge. Another thing is just sort of eating way too damn often. We're always eating. We're just eating so much in society nowadays. We're always going to the gas station, but we're only driving a few kilometers in between meals. So we're never burning out all of the fuel that we used before we fill up again. So we're wasting all of our time refueling, and wasting all this money refueling when we still have a full tank of fuel left. And we have several full tanks of fuel, if not dozens or hundreds of stored tanks of fuel left in our body. So we really want to reverse this insulin resistance. So we want to do our best to adhere to a low carbohydrate diet as much as possible. We know it's not going to be perfect, and if your diet is still going to be high in carbohydrates, we have to work more on the fasting, because we have to make sure that you're dumping more than you're filling back up on. It needs to be a net movement down. So when you fast, you're dumping. And so we want to make sure we're just not filling up that much. The less you fill back up with sugar and insulin, then the more effective, the more efficient, and the quicker the fast is going to be. We also don't want you to eat too often. And since we're approaching break time, I will talk about that in the meal timing section. So we just don't want to eat too often. We don't want to refuel before we need to, and that's the bottom line. And again, when we fast, we're dumping. Fasting is a dumping process. The longer you fast, the more you're going to dump out. It's just going to take time. It's really going to take time to sort of dump all this stuff out. The good news, though, is that you can definitely keep the diabetes in the butt a lot sooner and a lot quicker than it takes to develop the diabetes. But the more fasting you do, the more you're going to be able to dump out.